Labels don't matter. Whatever labels people put on you, whatever labels you try to put on yourself, none of it matters. The only person that actually does have control over your labels is you. And if you really care about the business and the people working for you, you're going to get some negative labels along the way from people that don't matter. And that's okay. That shouldn't hold you back from making those decisions, right? No one's perfect. We're going to make good decisions, bad decisions. Ultimately, though, if you're going to be a leader, you have to take action regularly so your staff trusts that you're not going to sit on your hands when they need you the most.
How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is Shawn Rider today for the Tactical Empire, and we have an awesome guest with us today. It is Chris Williams. He's a member of the Inner Circle. We've been friends for a while, so I'm happy to have Chris on today. Chris, where are you coming in from, brother?
Tracy, California, my man. So, yeah, I'm sitting here in my car because we got some technical difficulties in the office, so got to pivot quick.
Let's hit it. And Chris is the host of the Keep Digging In, Keep Digging podcast. Talk to us.
The Morning Dig, but close. I appreciate the effort.
Morning Dig. I know we're digging something. I should have checked that before we got started, but you and I both were scrambling with our double internet outages on the East and West Coast. So Chris is the host of the Morning Dig podcast. You keep your episodes short and sweet, don't you?
Yeah, for all my ADHD brothers and sisters, we keep that shit real short. So 5 minutes or less for the Morning Dig. It's more of a inspirational podcast, just talking motivation and thoughts from the week that I feel like had an impact on me that I can share with others. And then soon to be coming out is the Balanced CEO podcast, more of a 30-minute. Again, out there thinking about all my friends with ADHD that, you have to break up a 3-hour podcast into like 4 weeks. So I'm like, all right, 30 minutes. I think everybody can get through that if it's engaging enough.
Yeah. Most podcasts I listen on like 1.25 speed, but those 2-3 hour long podcasts with guests that I really want to listen to, that'll be like 1.5 to 1 3/4. And it talks fast at 1 3/4, talks real fast. So I can respect the 5-minute podcast because I just ran some solo episodes for the Tactical Empire last week, and I listened back to it just because I learned by watching and listening. And when I was in 4th grade for my first year of football, my dad would film the games. I'd get home and I would just watch them over and over and over again. So I do the same thing at 36 years old. And so I listened to the podcast. I'm like, man, Shawn, like you repeated the same thing over and over and over again on a 20-minute podcast. It could have been 7 minutes, but I just kept repeating like what the topic was. So I feel like
you got to filter dead air. Yeah.
Thanks for keeping it short. But we got 20 minutes set aside today, so we're gonna knock this out. I mean, Chris, there's a time and a place for people to tell their backstory, to have some authority. I don't think we need to spend 5 minutes on it. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to listen to Chris Williams talk. He's built something out of nothing, and he's built it in the greatest, worst state in the country of California. So anyone that can build a business in California, I put up on a pedestal. So, Chris right now, I mean, he's got a few things going on. I'll let him tell you about that as he goes. But we're really trying to extract the lessons and things that Chris has learned, both, book knowledge, and then when he took that book knowledge and implemented it into his life. But Chris, I know you like to speak on leadership, so I'm just going to go right for the gut here. And like, what would the Chris of 10 years ago, what would he like to know from Chris today in regards to building a small business under $1 million?
Labels don't matter. Right? Whatever labels people put on you, whatever labels you try to put on yourself, none of it matters. The only person that actually does have control over your labels is you. And if you really care about the business and the people working for you, you're going to get some negative labels along the way from people that don't matter. And that's okay. That shouldn't hold you back from making those decisions, right? No one's perfect. We're going to make good decisions, bad decisions. Ultimately, though, if you're going to be a leader, you have to take action regularly so your staff trusts that you're not going to sit on your hands when they need you the most.
Do you think the downside of it is like people that love your service and enjoy being there, they actually like maybe this isn't the best way to say it, but like those clients kind of take it for granted. Like you know that you're doing well, you know that you're providing a good service. And so they don't actually tell you that as often as we hope they do. But the people that maybe have some other things going on in life and they like to have small business owners be the brunt of that target and anger and emotion, they're the ones that speak up more often. And when they speak up, their volume is louder. Is that something that you've kind of come to find? Is like it's really hard for small business owners to be given the positivity externally, which is kind of why we have to be okay internally. But what is your thought on that?
I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Like, I mean, that is something that is literally I've obsessed over the last few months. Is like, why do you might have a rants and raves page, whatever you want to call it in your town, and people just rip small businesses. They never rip the big ones, and why? And that just drove me nuts, and I had to dig into it as far as I could. And I kind of think it's three reasons. One, we're easy targets because we're there. They can reach us. They know when they say something, it's going to reach us, right? So whether it's because they're having a shitty day or they know it's gonna. I guess it's the best way is like hurt people, right? So like if you're in a bad mood, if you say something on one of these pages or to a friend or somewhere, it's eventually going to get to that person and more than likely inflict damage, right? And then the other thing is virtuosity. Most small businesses lack it, and they lack it in a big way. When you go to McDonald's, you know exactly what's going to happen from start to finish. The process is not going to differ. Yes, they might forget cheese on your cheeseburger, but the 5 minutes that you're there, exactly what you're going to get every time. In and out in 5 minutes, unless the line's long, but still you know what the process is going to be. It never diverts. They're very, very, very good at doing the most basic things right. Whereas with a small business, if you're not great at leadership, you're not holding people accountable, creating a consistent service, it's a crapshoot. So you go in and you get 5-star service one day, you get 1-star service the next because that person wasn't trained appropriately, and you're just trying to shove them into a slot like a server or something. It's going to piss people off. They can handle bacon not being on their salad, but they can't handle the service doing this every time they come in. So I think that's probably one of the biggest underlying things that I don't think small businesses take seriously enough. And lastly, I think like you kind of basically what you said, to sum up what you said, is basically like, I think our best clients, they take it for granted. They haven't gone elsewhere. And when they do, they realize how good they have it at CFT or in our CrossFit gym. They realize how clean it is. They realize how good the coaching is. They realize how nice the quality of the equipment and the space is. And, they just start putting two and two together that it's a lot. There's a lot more work we're doing that we don't brag about or put out there in the public space that they need to realize they're very lucky to have.
I love that you said all that. I kind of liken it to the book. I apologize for not knowing the author, and I could pull it up here real quick, but I don't want to get distracted because I'm juggling being the interviewer of a podcast. Is the book Quiet, and it's basically how introverts can succeed in a extroverted or loud world. And you know how you read these books and you really only take one or two things away. The biggest thing that I took away there was like introverts struggle in certain environments because the extroverts are the ones that are going to vocalize what they want and what they need and what they think should happen inside of an organization or a meeting. So think about it. So a manager comes into a meeting, there's 5 people there and they're like, hey, what are your guys' thoughts on these things? And it makes complete sense. It's like, of course the extroverts are going to speak up first because they feel comfortable in front of a group. So same thing can be said for our clients. And so a big thing that I've had to learn, Chris, and feel free to chime in here, is like, I've had to understand that like my love language is words of affirmation. Like, I want to know that I'm doing well. I want to know that I'm making proper action to help push my relationship forward, my business forward, my management of my team forward. And so when I didn't get that from clients when I was building my first business, like I felt like I was out on an island on a silo. So one thing that I've had to work on, which going back to your thing, was the first one was external. Like the people that have a bad day and hurt people, like I don't control them. I don't control the words that come out of their mouth. I don't control. But what I do control is that experience that the majority of my guests can have on a regular, consistent basis. And then to me, what's even higher above that is how do I find success within myself? How do I have those positive words of affirmation come from me? And the only thing that mattered at that point was, do I feel comfortable about the actions that I'm taking? And so that's how I've kind of leveled up my maturity as a business owner, is like, yes, I still have words of affirmation as my love language. Yes, I like getting positive feedback from people. But as at the end of the day, as long as I know and understand that I'm doing the next right thing for my team first and the clients really tight after that, then I don't need to worry about that Google review or that Facebook post that tagged me or my business in it.
Yeah, I think that's really crucial too, is realizing that I think a lot of us put our customers first. So we take what our customers say to way too deep, and we kind of hang our staff out to dry, right? Like we kind of turn on our staff when we get bad reviews or whatever. When in reality, the number one voice in our head should be your direct management, your direct leadership. That's I'm a CEO at this point. I'm not really in the day to day. So the number one person that's going to get my ear is the people working directly underneath me, right? We just had an all staff meeting on Saturday. So I was listening to everyone, but ultimately on a day to day basis, it's my direct reports that are going to get my ear. Mm-hmm. But a member could turn to me and go, yeah, that really sucked yesterday, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, cool, all right, no problem. We'll take that into consideration. And then I'll turn to my GM and go, any validity? Right? I have to trust if she says yes or no. Mm-hmm. I have to trust. And then at that point, I kind of have to, I either can mentor and guide her on how to handle the situation, or I have to trust she has the situation under control. Like she might turn to me and go, yes, there's validity. Yes, I'm already on it. Yes, we have a plan in place on how to deal with the situation. Or more often than not, she goes, no, that person came in grumpy and was just having a shitty day. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Right? We can't take everything anyone says and just run with it and allow emotions to cloud every decision we make.
Hell yeah. I feel that. And that's how you get on that roller coaster ride. Because if you're trying to interact with a handful of people, they're all in different positions for the day and have different emotions for the day. And your interactions may be different.
And they all have different goals in mind for what they're saying. They all have personal, they all have personal things that they're trying to accomplish with whatever they're telling you.
Yeah. And one thing that kind of put me in a bind quite often when I was a little bit younger, and something that I have to cognitively think about, is more times than not, and this is going to be framed as a question to you, more times than not, do you make quick decisions or do you take your time? What is your default mode? Fast decisions or slow decisions? Because I am a fast decision maker, and it's worked out well for me most of the time. But I can see in hindsight that I've had to learn, especially as the decisions and consequences are bigger, I have to slow down. But what is your default mode as an entrepreneur?
My default mode is fast, but my default mode is, here's my suggestion. Then wait for my team, my direct supports, to turn to me and go and filter it for me, and then tell me whether or not I have all the information, right? So I kind of love Dan Martell's thing of the 1-3-1. Here's the problem. Here's 3 solutions. Here's the one we think is best. In a fast-moving situation, I think the number one thing that most entrepreneurs and business owners fail at is moving fast enough, taking action quickly. I think we're so afraid to make a mistake or to get something wrong. And I got to tell you, you're going to make a million mistakes. You're going to get a million things wrong. And about 999,999 of them are something you can come back from. Yep. So the likelihood that this one time you're going to make a quick decision and it's going to ruin everything and the whole thing's going to implode on you is like slim to none. Yeah. However, if you have the right team to filter your quick decisions and tell you, hey, I don't think you have all the information or the full picture. Let me give you this other side of it and give you my suggestion, and then let me know if your decision changes. How do you build the culture to actually have your team feel comfortable and confident to say that to you, as opposed to, oh, he's the owner, oh, he's the CEO, oh, he's the boss? How? Because I'm going to assume that's not how it always was on day one of Chris Williams' entrepreneurship journey. So what have you had to cultivate? And like the short answer is like, oh, it's within culture, but I hate that shit. Like, what does that, what the hell does that actually look like? Because it's not pretty when you're going through that transition, I'm sure. It comes back to consistency, right? If I say I'm giving you autonomy to make decisions, I can't come back every third decision and go, no, I'm going to take that one over. Nah, I don't think you have it right. And if they don't have it right, I'm going to tell them. But I'm not going to tell them you don't have it right. I'm taking over. I'm going to tell them, hey, like they would tell me, constant culture of feedback. Let's slow down. I think you're missing something here. And it's not because I think you're wrong. It's because of my experience. There's a chink in the armor of this thing you're putting out. Let's unpack it, figure out where the missing link is, because I could see this happening down the line, and I'd like to avoid it.
Yeah.
Right. So I do that for them, and over time they get comfortable realizing, like, I'm not going to chew their head off if their answer's wrong. I'm not going to chew their head off if they come to me and go, "You're wrong." Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not in the day-to-day, and I make it very clear I'm not in the day-to-day. So if I get something wrong, or if I have the wrong picture, or if I'm just vibing if I'm in the wrong lane altogether, like, it's okay to tell me and get me where you need me to be, and in the mindset you need me to be to make the right decision.
Yeah. I think it's, again, like what you say to them and then your actions downline have to be in alignment. So I think it's perfectly fine for managers or business owners, CEOs, to literally tell their team what you just said about Dan Martell. Is like, hey guys, I really want to emphasize a 1-3-1 model where when you come to me, I want to know the one problem, and I want to know 3 solutions and 1 recommendation. But then 3 weeks later, they bring you a problem and you're the one giving them the solution. So like, you're telling them what you want to do, but you're not backing it up. So there is a kind of like a 2-side equation to this. But I think literally, like, ingraining it in your head, and what I had to get good at was, when someone brought me a problem, if they didn't bring me a solution, I literally just had to ask them. I said, well, what do you think? What would you like to do in this situation? And over time, one of the things that I had to verbally tell my people too was, like, you have to understand that I will never fire you. I will never reprimand you. At the end of the day, when you make a decision that you feel is in the best interest of this business based on what our vision, mission, and goals are. And by business, I mean, that could be something that we do for the macro business, a decision they've made, or a micro decision that they've made for one individual client, right? It might cost me a little bit of money. It might cost me a decent amount of money. I might be a little frustrated about the dollar amount, but if you tell me that you made the decision because you think it falls in line with XYZ, then you shouldn't be worried about losing your job over that. Now, over a long enough timeline, I want to make sure that those decisions are in alignment with what I would actually do. And that comes back to training them and supporting them over a long enough timeline. But I think all that, Chris, goes back to what you said, is like, you have to be willing to be proactive yourself and be proactive with your team members, or allowing your team members to be proactive. And when you're not proactive or taking action, then none of that gets better. So these are the type of people, and you've seen them and I've seen them, where they reach out to you, you go to coffee with them, you get on a phone call with them, you kind of like pseudo mentor them, you give them a suggestion, and 2 years later, they come back to you with the same freaking problem. Because they took no personal accountability, and they took no personal action throughout that 2-year process.
Oh, all the time. Mm-hmm. And those are people you need to, if they're on your team, those are people you need to either encourage and support finding somewhere else to go, or you need to be very, very clear with them that long before 2 years, that this isn't acceptable. And I can't give you any directives, because in California, all I can do is basically like suggest there are better places to work without getting sued. So, again, I think everybody has a little bit of a different situation, but depending on your state and your employment laws and everything else, I would be moving those people off pretty fast. They can go from a little bit of a overgrown weed to a full-blown disaster real fast.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I want to respect your time, but I do want you to take a few minutes here. Like, what is Chris Williams fired up about right now? Like, what are you diving like deep into? What are you most excited about? And you can take the answer to that question anyway. Like, what are you doing, my man?
Well, let's see. I am finalizing a keynote speech this week on my life and shedding labels, and essentially like allowing yourself to what they would call like molting, right? Shedding skin multiple times over your life. And that's why I brought up labels, because it's something I started as being labeled as a thug as a kid, to now being labeled as a CEO and entrepreneur and giver and tenacious and all these other words. And it's taken 20 plus years to get there. Mainly because I allowed myself to sink into those negative labels in the past. And essentially that, well, if I'm going to get in trouble for it, I might as well be it type of situation rather than trying to rise above it and put my own labels on myself through my actions. And so that's that. I've got a book coming out kind of in the same thing, just a more elongated version, more in depth about different ways you can shed skin, shed those labels, and grow as a person based on my own experiences. And then got the 2 gyms running, man. Coaching a few people on the side here and there that need some help.
Beautiful, beautiful. What is the biggest skin you've shedded? I mean, maybe it was the answer there you said about being a thug, but like, can you go a little bit deeper on the biggest thing that Chris Williams has had to let go of over the past 5, 10, 15 years?
Shit. Being okay with being obese and just, I don't want to say lazy, but somewhat inactive and unmotivated to someone that gets out there and gets it done every day, right? So I went from that just 2.5 years ago to where I am today. And you look back and I can't quantify the difference. I can't quantify the amount of layers of skin I have shed just in a 2.5 year period from getting out there and getting burned and shedding skin, or the positives and the mistakes and the lessons learned. But you can't. I understand the reasons people struggle with action, right? For fear of failure, fear of everything. But I promise you, people that take action will fail more times in their lifetime than those inactive people will actually take action.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
because we're just out there doing it.
Well, if you don't take action, then you'll never have to say that you failed. Like that's like,
right, that's the fear, right? I don't ever want to say.
Yeah, how are we going to define failure? But at the end of the day, like no one knows a successful person that is standing at the top and where they wanted to be and be like, man, this was the easiest shit ever. I've never heard someone that is successful in my eyes and my definition of success that like said it was fucking easy. Right? Like it shouldn't be, I also don't think it should be a fucking grind and like mucking through the mud every day for 20 years. Like there's so many highlights through this entrepreneurial journey. But I think again, that's how are you labeling things? It comes back to what you're saying. I think label not only the internals, but the externals appropriately, and then take the actual action internally to make yourself okay mentally as an entrepreneur. Okay. And again, that's one thing. I was looking for the external validation, and I really just had to be okay with myself and know that I was taking the right moves. So Chris, how can people find you and support you in your message?
You can find me on Instagram, Lock34, LOCK34. You can find me on YouTube, The Balanced CEO. And those are the 2 main ones, man. I got the podcast running through there. I got Instagrams where I'm really, really active. So definitely find me in those spots.
Fuck yeah. If you want to follow a former thug turned CEO and still wearing the gold chain, Chris Williams is your man. Chris Williams is your man.
Yeah, take the whole thug out, man. So like a little bit of that's always going to be there.
Well, I mean, you're a Raiders fan, so you still have to uphold that brand as well. So that's all good.
Hey, I'll do it till I die.
That's right. All right, brother. Well, we appreciate you. We will catch up soon. Y'all spread the word. Share this episode with another entrepreneur that you know has to hear Chris's words on labels and shedding skin. Chris, I appreciate you.
Thanks for the opportunity, my man.